All right, welcome to week 3 of Meditations for Mortals. So I've been doing a review of this book, but I'm doing it sort of day by day, which is quite a lengthy process. But the way Burkeman wrote this is to read one chapter a day and kind of reflect on it, and I took that opportunity to reflect on the chapter by writing, and then basically have about half page to a couple pages per chapter of my reflections on this book. I've already done a part of week 1 in the videos. You'll find it in the playlist under Burkeman's Meditations. I've done week 2. It's sort of in one video, so this is week 3. Let's get to it. So starting with day 15, this is probably the idea that kind of stuck with me the most from this book, that I started using and implementing right away, and it is called Reframing Easy. Now, this idea of reframing occurs in some of the other books I was reading, and that is just serendipitous. I was not expecting to have multiple books kind of talk about the same ideas. I'll talk about that towards the end of this. But on day 15, it's about reframing easy. But my reflection here as I'm writing this is that this book is a bit hot and cold. The previous books I've read from Burkeman, they're sort of one concise kind of narrative. This one is written more like essays, so there are some essays that are more relevant to me and therefore hot, and then other essays I'm kind of like, what is he saying here? Maybe not as relevant to me, so cold. So think about this book as more of a collection of essays than just one long narrative like you're used to with Burkeman's books. So here it's hot and cold, but this was definitely hot. So a couple of quotes here is basically reframing a situation where you're maybe stuck or feeling angry, frustrated, resentful, bitter, and reframing it to saying, hey, what if this were easy? So there's a quote from Tim Ferriss that stood out that says, what would this look like if it were easy? And then there's another quote by Julia Rogers Hamrick that says, I choose to live in easy world. And I actually put a little post-it on my computer that says, I live in easy world. And what that does is, I started using it kind of right away because I was walking our dog, and she's a very, let's say, opinionated hound. And it was a hot day here in Florida, and I was tired, and what I wrote here is my workout from the morning was catching up to my muscles and bones. Our dog was being what did I write? Okay, so we were starting to hate my evening walk because our dog was kind of doing her thing, and she was pulling and all those things and not going where I wanted to go, and she wanted to go to these like really long walks that I didn't. And I was already starting to get frustrated right in the beginning of the walk. So I remembered this chapter because I'd read it earlier that day, and I said, what if this were easy? What if I live in easy world? And what that did is kind of pull me out of my fixed mind, which was saying that the walk with our dog is going to be hard and strenuous and hot, and she's not going to want to do what I do, and so on and so forth. And I said, well, what if this walk were easy? And it sort of wrenched me out of my sort of fixed mind and made me kind of be more flexible in the moment, and it actually bought me about 30 minutes. Now it did get pretty strenuous towards the end of the walk. It was a hot afternoon, but saying that reframe, what if I live in easy world, what if this were easy, helped me sort of look at a different perspective. And you got to be careful to do that, because it could also be very invalidating if you're going through a tough time. And if you just told a friend like, hey, what if this were easy? And they'd be like, it's not easy, it's hard. So just be careful, just maybe use it on yourself and see if it helps you kind of come out of that fixed mind where you can start being more flexible about the situation. Because life is unpredictable. So that's what I took from that. This reframing idea kind of comes up again in a book called The Expectation Effect that I'm reviewing in a few weeks' time. So subscribe if you want to don't miss that review. All right, so that's day 15. Day 16, when I first read this chapter, I write here that I did not understand it. It's one of those cold chapters, as if it's what is it saying really? Why is it plopped in the middle of this book? But what happened is, what I realized later is this chapter is about self-compassion, because later that afternoon when I read that chapter in the morning and then in the afternoon, I was realizing that I woke up kind of ruminating on a distant problem, and then I was like feeling frustrated and so on. It was a Saturday, and I was being tough on myself for saying like, oh look, I've wasted my Saturday just thinking about these things and problems and this, that, and the other. Whereas I reread the chapter and I realized that what I'm missing is compassion for myself. So that's really what I feel like this chapter is about, self-compassion. Because what I did end up having that Saturday was I had a lovely walk. I went to the library. I attended a writing group that I'm involved in. I talked to a friend. I had a really nice fried fish sandwich for lunch. It was actually a really nice day. So I was missing that self-compassion. I felt like I had wasted the day when I hadn't. And that came out of this chapter. So I'm glad it sort of weirdly fell into the day that I needed to read it, which is very nice little perk to have as you're reading a book. Day 17. This one is about being generous. Now, I did not really identify with this, but what I got from it is maybe compassion for people who make it really, really tough on themselves to give well, right? So people who get really caught up in the perfect way to give to charity or give generously, give to others, be generous, instead of just kind of freely giving when the moment calls for it. So that it is not a problem I face, but now that I read about it, I realized that there are people who do face that. So I now have maybe a renewed compassion for people who are struggling with that. Day 18. Compulsion to solve others' problems. So totally guilty of this. I write here because I thought I was the only person who always feels like wanting to solve other people's problems. But I write here, I guess I'm not the only problem solver in the world. An unsolved problem is like a nail head sticking out and you happen to have the only hammer, right? So why wait? But what I was able to just kind of take from this chapter is that not all problems have an obvious solution that can be implemented at this very instant, and that the solution would guarantee that the problem would never reappear again. So that really, reading the chapter helped me. I've obviously been working at like not providing immediate solutions as soon as other people come to me with problems, but being more, listening more, validating more. But reading this chapter kind of further reinforced what I've already been working on, is to basically expand the space between the event, somebody coming to me with a problem, and the impulse to give a solution for the problem. Can expand that space a little bit more, because you may have the right solution, the perfect solution, but that doesn't mean that the person's life is going to immediately turn around. Unless you have a solution like that, then absolutely use it. But in my experience, 99.9% of the time, nobody comes to me with a problem that has such an immediate solution that can turn their life around at that instant. It's usually something that takes a long time to slowly change and so on. So this was a good chapter for me to read and reflect and really realize I'm not the only person who does this. All right, so that was day 18. Moving on to day 19. This one is about embracing unpredictability. And that obviously for a planner, for an engineer-minded person like I am, a very analytical-minded, I would like to plan ahead of things. And this helped me reflect on times that I have made maybe some plans but not enough plans. And did I still have a good time? And I did. The couple books Burkeman talks about here that are on my reading list now are Harmut Rosa's book Resonance, and a second book, The Uncontrollability of the World. So I'll link these in the description. And but it's on my list. I haven't bought them yet, so I'll be buying them and starting to read them. So this made me remember a trip that me and my wife made to New Mexico. I was fairly kind of burnt out from work, and we didn't really plan ahead. We wanted to go to Colorado, but it was too late, and it was probably far into the winter, so we said, let's just go somewhere else. And we picked New Mexico in a whim, and we just bought some plane tickets and made a rough itinerary and kind of booked a few places where we would go, and really didn't have much of a plan. We just had places where we would stay every night we were there, and we had plane tickets and a car rental, and that's it. And we showed up, and we kind of showed up at the town, and we're like, what do we do here today? And it was largely unplanned. Now it could have been more unplanned by not even having a plane ticket or places to stay, but we at least did that. Did not want to sleep out of our car. But anyway, it was largely unplanned, and I wrote here, it was full of awe and amazement. I felt I was on the razor's edge of novelty, and I was able to absorb that outwardly landscape of New Mexico that I could not have ever planned for. The landscape, the geology of New Mexico just absolutely astounded me. It was incredible, and I bought several books about just learning about how the geology happened there and the variety of geology. Like, we would travel, I don't know, an hour, and it looked like we were on a different planet. It was amazing. And that now, as I was reflecting on that chapter, which is day 19, I realized that I've had a fantastic time, a memorable time. I still talk about it today, for a trip that was completely unpredictable for me. I did not really know what to expect there. So more confidence in going into something with less predictability for me. And obviously this doesn't come right away, but it did happen, so I know it is possible. All right, day 19, that was okay. Day 20 is about quantity, not quality. So this one totally threw me off because, and I wrote, the title intrigues me. This is the opposite of what we shoot for, right? We always go for high quality. Why are we saying quantity? But then I realized that with quantity, here Burkeman is talking about consistency. So showing up, instead of always thinking of doing the perfect quality work, you're showing up to your job every day and putting in the hours and sitting on the project. And even if you can't figure out what is the best outcome of the project, the best way to solve the problem, you're there grinding at it consistently. And that is what he's saying. Like gym, go to the gym 3 days a week, deep work every day, 3 hours a day, read 50 pages a day, get 10,000 steps a day, etc., etc. So again, great chapter to like change your thinking a little bit. And I think the common themes here are obviously if you're familiar with Oliver Burkeman, he talks about the finitude of life, that we are imperfectly perfect beings. And in this case, also about moving away from perfectionism, which a lot of people struggle with. So those are kind of the three themes that kind of run through most of his work and most of his books. This chapter on day 20 was definitely about the perfectionism or being against it. All right, last day for this week is day 21. And that is embrace interruptions, be distractible. So this one totally blew my mind because while I was reading this, I was also reading a book by Nir Eyal and Julie Lee called Indistractable. So this chapter is saying basically the opposite of what the whole book is about. And I did a review of that book as well, so that's coming up in a few weeks. Subscribe if you want to check it out and don't miss it. And so I said I'm surprised, very curious to see this is very opposite of the whole book, as I mentioned. And so what? Again, here Burkeman is inviting us to be flexible. So he mentions a term called open awareness. That stood out to me. This allows life to be messy without distractions, throwing us so far off our course with frustrations, which are signs of a fixed mind. So, and this is a good one because I think this actually does match with Indistractable. And in Indistractable, very quickly they talk about internal triggers and then traction. Traction is basically how you hold on to the attention that you have found a way to hold on to. So how do you keep that traction going? They keep the gears meshed. And what happens often, I know it has happened to me, is I make the intention, set my little timer, and do I'm going to deep work for 2 hours, and then an interruption happens that I can't ignore, like somebody's at the door, or I get a phone call from my boss or whatever, and I have to drop what I'm doing and switch projects, which is not what I wanted to do, not what I intended to do. And that can then add to the frustration that, man, I was trying to do this deep work and it didn't happen, I keep failing at it, and so on. That could become frustrating, and that could chip away at the ability to get back to that original intention of doing that deep work. So here, this open awareness, I think Burkeman is inviting us to say, look, life is going to be messy, so let a distraction happen, deal with it, and then flexibly move back to what we were doing originally, and continue on with that without that frustration kind of creeping in. And that is a really nice advice that kind of dovetails really nicely with the book Indistractable. So this is where, I often, think about places where I'm focused, where I am definitely prone to losing my cool because I had this intention and then it got disrupted by whatever happening around me. And this is a nice little reflection for me to keep that open awareness and flexibility in mind. And that's it. So that's the 7 days of week 3, and I will be doing another video on week 4, and I'll see you then.